Good morning, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for this virtual get-together on STAS, Europe's new tool for short-term anticipation of skills trends and vet demand. Just a couple of minutes to remind you of the usual housekeeping rules. For any technical issue, you can ask for assistance in the chat technical support. The meeting is being recorded and will be made available on SADEFOP's YouTube channel. I would also kindly ask you to fill in the evaluation form at the end of the event, and additional access will also be possible via the link on our social media today. Now, let me share with you a quick overview of today's sessions. We have an exciting lineup of speakers, starting with Antonio Ranieri, our head of department for Vet and Skills. Antonio will share some opening remarks about SADEFOP strategic investment in skills anticipation and foresight. Then Madalina Suta will guide us through the black box and explain how the STAS tool works, and she will also share some key insights from latest projections. Madalina works formation, followed by a policy focused discussion on the relevance of short-term skills anticipation in today's labor market and policy landscape. We are honored to host three distinguished speakers, each bringing a unique perspective. We have Michael Horgan from DG Employment, Irene Mandel from the European Labour Authority, and Takaaki Kizu from the International Labour Organization. Last but not least, our department coordinator, will conclude the virtual get-together with some final remarks. So, thank you again for joining us. I would also thank the guys in the background, our team of assistants and technical support for making this possible. I hope you will enjoy the event, and it's now time to hand over to Antonio for the opening remarks. Please, Antonio, the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning. Let me take this opportunity to publicly thank Pierpaolo, because this project has been waiting for some time here at SADEFOP, and we have... Sorry?
Camera, please.
Can I continue? Okay.
Good.
I cannot hear you. I hear someone speaking, but I don't get the meaning of what you say. Okay, I guess I can continue. And I was just starting. I wanted in the beginning thanking Pierpaolo, because I mean, as I was saying, we have been sitting in a sense on this project for some time, and now we found the right person to make it happen. But I mean, thank you, Pierpaolo, and welcome to STAS, everyone. As you understood, this new tool providing short-term projections of occupations by member states is now part of our work on skills intelligence, our suite of data collection, evidence, tools to better understand and anticipate labor market trends, and hopefully contribute to make the EU approach to learning and skills policy more strategic and future-oriented. Now, SADEFOP has been producing long-term labor and skills forecasts for many years. Our traditional forecasts are quite popular in a sense because we use consistent data and approaches for all member states and actually about 32 countries. And this allows us to make cross-country comparison about future trends in sectors, occupations, qualifications, and so forth. So why did we decide to develop and set up this additional tool specifically for short-term projections? Well, there is not only one way, as you can imagine, to do forecasting and scenario analysis, and the choice depends on methodological reasons, which maybe will be more clear in later presentations, and also on the purpose of the analysis, which is, of course, affected by the context. Now, CEDEFOP presented its first full integrated pan-European forecast in 2010. So during a period when we were experiencing the consequences of the great financial crisis. And since then, I mean, you know, we have navigated a series of significant challenges. I mean, in the past 5 years alone, we had the pandemic. That was the first supply side crisis in Europe, in a sense. The energy crisis, a geopolitical situation which is driving a shift towards trade regionalizations, as they say. This rapid diffusion of generative artificial intelligence now we are all experiencing. So increasing uncertainty and short-term variability have become structural elements of policymaking. And this, we believe, I mean, is particularly relevant when discussing learning and skills development policies, because while, say, the formal education and vocational training have a fundamental role in driving long-term economic growth, on the other hand, continuing training, experiential learning, adult learning more generally, can play a special role in short-term adjustments in the economy and supporting continuous changes in the workplaces. Of course, it's crucial to maintain a focus on the long run, informing structural policies, reforms. However, vocational training and skills development are particularly effective, can be particularly effective in closing immediate skills gaps, keeping the economy running, even in the face of short-term disruptions. Especially considering that the data we have, I mean, normal statistics often usually were yesterday's glasses, because time lags are inevitable. And so short-term anticipation can provide timely information and facilitate effective policy responses. As said, there are also methodological reasons to develop a different tool, a different approach. I would say this in this way. I mean, when you look at the long run, what you usually do is to shape main structural trends in a way that is consistent with a certain vision about the future. You need some assumptions that incorporates a number of expected developments, demography, people's participation to the labor market, the impact of technology, and also some expected policy developments. Think of the Green Deal targets, for instance. So basically, we make some assumptions. We have one of more causal models, as we say, and then we see what is likely to happen in the future. When it comes to the short-term forecast, the point is not necessarily to understand what we call the causal model, that is why things happen, because in this case, we basically try to guess the future, and this has implications also in terms of techniques that can be used, and maybe our colleagues will tell us something shortly. One final thing is that in the interest of consistency, our choice has been to align our forecast to the employment projections that are produced by the Commission. And many thanks to colleagues to be here today, you know, as part of the economic forecast released by the Commission regularly. It means that we assume as a basis the Commission projections about the how many jobs, and we focus on the following issues, that is, what jobs, what skills, things that are most important to understand what training and learning is required in the near future. That's why we focus on occupations, to identify broad areas of the labor market on which policymakers and stakeholders should focus their attention. These may be areas of job growth, but also areas of job loss. And as you can understand, even for instance, in countries where you expect minimal net changes in total employment, you may anticipate substantial changes in the employment structure, and therefore significant implications in terms of occupations, qualifications, skills needs, and so forth. So that was to try to highlight why we consider very important this new tool. And with that, I mean, it's my pleasure to give the floor to our speakers today, our experts, our colleagues from Cambridge Econometrics, with whom we have a long-standing collaboration. And many thanks, of course, to our special guests who accepted to be here, Michael, Irene, Takaki. Thank you very much. And thank you again, everyone, for being here today. Thank you.
So, thank you, Antonio, for your inspiring insights, and we can now dive straight into the technical methodological dimension with Madalina explaining us how the tool works. Please, Madalina, I'm handing over to you.
Thank you, Pierre, and good morning, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen now. And yeah, I think everyone can see it now in presentation mode. Good morning, everyone. Yes, my name is Madalina Suta. I'm from Cambridge Econometrics, and it's a pleasure to be here to present this tool, which we work together with Economics and Data, and Pierre and Antonio and Ilias from SEDEFOP during the 2021-2023. So yes, it's been a long time, but we are finally seeing the projections being published, and it's a pleasure to be here to present them. In my presentation, I'll introduce you to the tool, very briefly talk about the methodological aspects on how we develop this tool together with SEDEFOP, and some insights from the latest update. So the tool STAS, or short-term anticipatory system, was developed to complement the existing tools that SEDEFOP has already in their suite of skills anticipation tools. And the objective was to look at demand, so project future demand in the next 2 years. And also to do so for occupation and member states. So this is only for the 27 member states of the European Union. Because we are looking at occupation, so then we could inform, with the help of STAS, we can inform what are the future skills needs, and to what extent the European Commission, the policymakers in the member states, could help to address the skills needs in the country. And finally, and most importantly, to add to the policy debate and to, together with the other tools that are in the SEDEFOP toolkit, to inform policy debates and help drive new ideas forward. How is STAS being developed? So in the background, what you are not seeing is a set of econometric projections where we combined time series econometric techniques to derive multiple baselines, and then to combine those baselines in the end. We wanted to use the most granular data available, and that is the labor force survey data at quarterly level. For this, we could only do 2 types of econometric analysis to derive employment forecast. One is the ARIMA model, so where we are using quarterly employment data by occupation one-digit level, so broad occupation, the 9 occupations of the ISCO classification. We are forecasting them for 8 quarters, up to 8 quarters. And then we disaggregate to a higher level of disaggregation, 2-digit level of occupation, so 41 ISCO occupations, using the latest annual matrix. And this gives us in the end an employment projection by 41 occupations. The idea was to use one-digit occupations because at quarterly level they are less stable. They are more stable than the 41 occupations. So the ARIMA model has the property of taking the trends. So this forecast is affected by the what happened in the last up to 4 quarters in the past. So the future is basically continuation of the past. And then the second model that we have used, also an econometric model, is a VAR or VEC model, depending on the properties of the data series. In this, for this model, we have used employment by sector from the labor force survey and vacancy data from the vacancy survey of Eurostat. And this would give us, in the end, employment projections by sector, also at quarterly level. So basically, in this case, there's an implied relationship between the employment and the vacancies data. Then we have used an occupation matrix by sector to disaggregate this employment by sector projection to employment by occupation projection for the 41 occupations. So at the end, both approaches give us a detailed projection of employment at the level of 41 ISCO occupations. And then we added to this projection another one, which we called it a naive forecast. So another projection where we took the growth for the last 8 quarters, and we assumed, that's why it's called naive, we assume naively that the growth from the past, it would follow into the future. So we have 3 projections, one using ARIMA, one using VAR or VEC, and one using naive forecast. And if I talk about each one of them individually, so the ARIMA one follows the past. So whatever happened in the past is expected to continue, at least in the future, or the present and the near future is influenced by the near past. Then in the VAR model, we have the relationships and their past values. And then the naive forecast is just assuming that the growth in the last quarters continues. So all these are done at quarterly level, and then we are going from quarters to year forecast. Today, we would have data for the for 2 quarters of 2024. So the projection that I'm going to share with you today has 2 quarters of 2024, which means that we completed by forecasting another 2 quarters of 2024. So 2024 is a mixture of forecast data and historical data, while 2025 is only forecast. So that's why we always complete with what we have from the historical values. We always complete to get 8 quarters, and then we transform these 8 quarters into annual levels. The STAS baseline is actually the average of these 3 individual forecasts. And this allows to bring basically insights from the from different aspects, and also to kind of net out whatever weaknesses individual models have. So the STAS tool is a mixture of Python and Stata. It's desktop application which opens in a browser, and then the user has different options. To generate the baseline, you have the option to call basically the latest data of from Eurostat using API, or you can manually download yourself the data. Once the baseline is run, then, as Antonio already mentioned, there was the opportunity to align it with the latest AMECO forecast. So we have this baseline that is generated from the STAS tool, following the methodology that I just explained, and then we align to the growth rates of the latest AMECO. And then there is opportunity in the STAS tool to just browse the results. So just to recap on the methodology, we have the STAS baseline, who is based on quarterly data by sector and occupation, quarterly data of employment for the 41 occupations, and quarterly data of vacancies by sector. And we have produced the latest release of STAS in November to get when the update of AMECO was released. So also the cutoff date was the day that AMECO was released, which was, I think, the 15th of November, if I remember correctly. And in that moment in time, Eurostat had only 2 quarters of 2024. And the annual data, the last annual data available was for the entire year was 2023. So the STAS baseline includes 2 quarters of 2024 historically, and then 6 quarters of forecast. So you'll see now the forecast for 2024 and 2025 for the STAS baseline. Then we have aligned this STAS baseline with the growth from the latest AMECO, but for each member state. So the growth for the 2 years, 2024 and 2025 now is linked to AMECO, but the distribution of the occupational distribution of each of these member states, so how this growth or decline is distributed, comes from STAS, which is based on the LFS survey. And now to show you the projections. In the left-hand side panel, you see the graph where we compare basically the STAS baseline with the AMECO baseline, and you'll see that basically the first 2 quarters of 2024 indicated a lower employment for 2024 than if we are to take the AMECO projection, which suggests an increase compared to 2023. So basically the AMECO baseline, which takes into account also macroeconomic information like GDP growth, investment expectations, interest rate expectation, exchange rate expectation, and prices expectation, was a bit more optimistic than just using time series econometrics based on the first 2 quarters of 2024. So we are expecting a growth for 2024 of around 1 million, and similar another growth of 1 million for 2025. But this growth is spread differently for the member states. So for 2025, you see that there are member states which are clearly gaining, and that is Malta, Luxembourg, Ireland, Cyprus, Spain, and Croatia. And then you have quite a few member states which are below the EU average, and Denmark, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Poland, Slovakia, Finland, Czech Republic is expected to stagnate. So not considerable growth. So the growth rate at the EU level basically is split differently among the member states. And now if we go into the details of the occupations, so that is the overview of the member states, and this would be the AMECO online baseline at occupation level. So what we see is that there's not much change between 2024 and 2025 in terms of if we're looking at who is gaining. So professionals and technical associate professionals are gaining, and they would continue to grow, but maybe more modestly in 2025 compared to 2024. Service workers and shop workers are continuing to grow as well, but more modest in 2025 compared to 2024. On the bottom, we have skilled agriculture and fishery workers, which is a declining occupation and has been declining for a long time, and it will continue to decline also in 2025, but a more modest decline compared to the decline in 2024. The one which is surprising is elementary occupations. As you can see, it was expected to decline in 2024, but will have a modest increase in 2025 compared to 2024. So some occupations would have a modest decline compared to 2024. Some would have a lower increase compared to 2024. So we do see some clear informations that the need for professional and technical professional will continue, and then this is quite clearly indication of the for the policymaker that we need more graduates also in professions and in vet studies or in higher education. While, for example, service workers could be also interpreted of maybe if we are considering through the lenses of AMECO, maybe stagnation in consumption that is coming up. And while, for example, for elementary occupation, it is possible that some of the macroeconomics are expecting to be favorable to these occupations. Then it's possible to see at a higher level of detail for each of the 41 occupations. I would just like to point out that some occupations which are small, like, for example, refuse workers and other elementary occupations, these were too small to be representative in the labor force survey. So for some countries, they are missing. It's also true that we didn't have vacancy data for all countries. Therefore, for some countries, the results that you're seeing are only driven by their past trends. But from the 41 occupation, I selected for you just 4. Also 4 occupations where we can draw some inference. One is ICT professionals. We know that the European Commission has put a target for 2030. And we need these ICT professionals also for the digital transition. So they are likely to continue to grow. And this growth is being seen in all member states, but particularly in Malta, Portugal, and Poland. While Finland, Denmark, and Slovenia, they also are seeing an increased demand for ICT professionals, but more modest. A profession or an occupation which is needed for the green transition is science and engineering profession. Therefore, their growth in demand has been on increasing trends for a long time now, and it will continue to also be in demand in 2025. And growth is expected in all member states, but especially in Malta, Austria, and Cyprus, while, for example, in Estonia and Bulgaria, it is possible that the demand would remain at the same level as in 2024. On the other end of the spectrum, we have a market-oriented skills agriculture worker. This is linked to also the agricultural sector, who has been in decline for employment for a long time. This decline will continue. The decline is modest in 2025 compared to other years, but it's still expected to increase. And the small increases that you're seeing in Slovakia, Latvia, and Hungary are small in also in percentage terms, but also in terms of levels. Is just a few people that we are adding to the demand. Food processing, woodworking, garments, and other crafts-related workers, so an important occupations for manufacturing, is also expected to decline at EU level, but this is driven specifically because most of the member states would experience a decline in employment in this one. So only France, Spain, and Hungary would experience a small increase. So this is something that you could browse also in the on the CEDEFOP website. There is the STAS tool website, and then you can browse each one of these occupations and check them out and what happens in your respective countries. And finally, the last slide, so employment is expected to increase in 2024 and in 2025, modestly by 1 million. Employment growth is distributed, like I was mentioning, and you saw also in the graph, unequally among the member states. We are expecting medium-skilled occupation to continue to decline, and while high-skilled occupations will drive this employment increase. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Madalina, for sharing the mystery, revealing the magic behind the data. So I think that now we are all well equipped for a policy-focused discussion. Today's panel is featuring 3 high-level experts who are presenting to us the reasons why short-term anticipation of skills is relevant to policymaking and policy analysis. We have Michael Horgan, who is a team leader in the Skills for the Transition team in the Unit for Vocational Education and Training at DG Employment, European Commission. We have Irene Mandel, who is the head of information and EURES at the European Labour Authority. She was also head of research unit employment at Eurofound, so she's not really a newcomer. And a worldwide perspective will be offered by Takaki Kizu, who is part of the Skills for the Future of Work team at the ILO skills branch. Panelists will have about 10 minutes each to share their thoughts and considerations on the policy relevance of short-term skills anticipation. Then we will have a second round for quick reactions, about 3 minutes each, before wrapping up the discussion. So I would start with Michael, and I would kindly ask him if he can share DG Employment's perspective in the new policy context in terms of vision, strategies, actions, guidelines, and why and how timely skills anticipation can be relevant to them. So please, Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Pier Paolo, and thanks for this invitation. Greetings from a sunny and unusually bright Brussels this morning. So I will indeed talk a little bit about what our perspective, especially given our current policy setting and context, and why I think short-term skills intelligence and anticipation is so important. As we know and has been said, short-term anticipation has increased importance and is essential to ensure faster policy response to labour market signals in order to ensure that the workforce is equipped with the necessary skills. And I think short-term anticipation can help identify emerging skills gaps and address them before, hopefully, they become major issues. And short-term anticipation is really, I think, coming out in a lot of the current policy documents. For instance, the political guidelines of the current Commission puts emphasis on the structural breaks on our competitiveness, including skills and labour shortages, and therefore the importance of tackling these gaps. And in this connection, President von der Leyen said we will boost and refocus skills funding in the EU budget to ensure it is better linked to labour markets and more focused on sectors crucial for the twin transition. So this clearly points to the importance of precise, timely and granular skills intelligence, which clearly identifies priority sectors and skills needed and where they are needed. The Draghi report states that skills shortages are acting as a barrier to innovation and technology adoption and could potentially even hinder decarbonisation. So he pleads for collective efforts to improve skills and argues that such efforts are hampered by underuse of skills intelligence, meaning reliable, granular and comparable information on skills needs across member states. The report adds that EU and member states need to enhance their use of skills intelligence by making more intense use of data to understand and act on skills gaps. Such information is essential to assess existing and forecast skills gaps across sectors and regions and target policies and spending appropriately. Further, the mission letter of our Executive Vice President, Minzatu, in the mission letter, there are references to tackling skills and labour gaps that hold back our productivity and competitiveness, and the need to enhance skills intelligence as one of the building blocks of a union of skills coming soon. In addition, I would also recall, of course, the action plan on labour skills and shortages adopted last year in March. And one of the stated actions was to improve skills intelligence and data gathering in close coordination with our EU agencies, CEDEFOP, Eurofound and ELA, and to broaden the scope of harmonised and comparable information available on labour and skills shortages at EU level. The action plan also indicated 42 EU-wide shortage occupations. I'll just say a few words now on what are the main skills shortages. So I already touched on in the last presentation. So as highlighted in the Draghi report, the competitiveness of the EU starts with the successful execution of the green and digital transitions and requires a labour force endowed with the right knowledge and skills. So first and foremost, as mentioned before, the digital transformation and new emerging technologies are creating new job opportunities and requiring workers to acquire new skills. So short-term anticipation of skills can help identify the skills and needed for these new jobs and ensure that workers are prepared. We're still facing a massive digital skills related challenges, as also highlighted by Madalina. And in 2023, we still have a situation where only 56% of European adults and 65% of workers have even basic digital skills. So we have set, as Madalina mentioned, our target of 80% of adults with at least basic digital skills by 2030, and we are following this through the DESI and the Digital Decade process. But we are far from reaching, at current progress, we would only reach 60% of the population having basic digital skills by 2030. So again, we need more granular, detailed and timely intelligence about member state, which complements Cedefop's existing suite of other tools. One of the main challenges of this short-term skills anticipation, I think, is data quality and availability. But I think, as explained by Madalina just now, by combining EU LFS quarterly and annual data, as well as European job vacancy data, and following a two-part econometric modeling approach, combined also with a naive forecast that she mentioned, we have a robust and sound methodology with recent data. One further, I'm coming near the end, but one further challenge is that skills intelligence still remains fragmented, and this is also an obstacle to capturing the fast evolving needs of the labour market. And this makes it difficult also to match skills demand and supply. So we need effective short-term anticipation of skills, which with coordination and cooperation among stakeholders, governments, education and training, and employers. I think this also points to the need, which I think Irena will touch on later, of our three EU agencies pooling their expertise and working together to create a common coordinated intelligence. So in the last commission over the last years, we have been addressing these skills shortages with the skills agenda for skills for green and digital transitions, with the digital education action plan, with the Digital Europe program for high-level digital skills. And we've seen unprecedented funding of, for example, 23 billion euros on digital skills under the RRF. So now finally, just looking forward, the aim of the Union of Skills, which is planned to be published next week on 5th March, is to provide a vision and support to bring together stakeholders to enhance education and training systems while addressing skills shortages in current and future labour markets, and to make sure that everyone can thrive in a fast-changing society. It will propose actions such as the action plan on basic skills and strategy on STEM education, and further down the line, a VET strategy. And skills, I'll finish by saying that skills intelligence, especially short-term skills intelligence, will be an important element in the Union of Skills. And I would expect Cedefop and other agencies to have an important role in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael, for this clear and complete overview. You touched upon a number of very relevant topics. Of course, fully agree on the need for boosting and refocusing skills intelligence for Europe to be competitive also in the future, and for workers to be well equipped for the technological and economic shifts and challenges. You mentioned the importance of data integration and synergies, and this naturally opens the floor for Irene Mandel, European Labour Authority. I would ask Irene about ELA's activities on labour shortages and surpluses, as well as the main challenges and opportunities for short-term skills anticipation to be relevant for policy making and policy analysis. Please, Irene.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thanks particularly for CEDEFOP for the opportunity to also contribute to this event. I have prepared a few slides to support my intervention, so I'll try to share them now. So while this is loading, let me say a few words, as already was mentioned, about the cooperation between the agencies. So I'm from the European Labour Authority, which is one of the 5 agencies in the employment field. And I'm particularly speaking here in ELA's role as the European Coordination Office of the EURES network. So EURES is a cooperation network of about 270 organizations across Europe, notably public and private employment services, as well as the European Commission and ELA. And I've seen that also a few EURES representatives are today in the meeting. So you're very welcome, and great that you join us also for this presentation. So EURES has a very operational task. So in contrast to what CEDEFOP has been presenting, being more a research and academic, a labor market intelligence mandate, ELA and EURES have a very operational objective in terms of facilitating free movement of labor and labor mobility more generally in Europe, and that EURES does with supporting job seekers and employers in finding each other's and thereby clearing mismatches in terms of supply and demand on the labor market. That said, while, as mentioned, it has these very operational activities, there also is a labor market intelligence mandate in EURES in this field that we have for the 31 countries that are affiliated to EURES. We are to regularly provide the latest labor market data and trends, as well as doing a regular analysis on labor shortages and surpluses in Europe. And we have a very fresh and new tool, which was developed in cooperation with CEDEFOP and which is online only since November, which we call the Job Vacancies Insights. And I give you a bit of a snapshot of notably the 2 later tools now, because they fit very well with the topic about skills intelligence. So our labor shortages and surplus report is strongly reliant on the contribution of our national network. So every of the affiliated countries annually delivers to us based on their national definition and national methodologies a list of shortage and surplus occupations along ISCO. And what you see here is the freshest data, which is not yet published, will be available in about a month and a half or 2 months. And what we see here is that literally across all Europe, we do have the problem of labor shortages, which is not exactly the same as skill shortages, but a part of that is at least driven by skills, but there are also other reasons like working conditions or spatial elements. And what we see here is that if you go through the ISCO classification, which identifies about 440 occupations across Europe, about 89% of all of these occupations are on shortage in at least one country. That is what you see on the left hand of this slide. On the right hand, you see the same for surplus occupations. And that means even if there are these very strong shortages across all Europe, we actually need to think about a mismatch on the labor market rather than a gap only, because we do have this strong emergence still of surpluses, meaning those are workers which would be available but do not find a job. To go a little bit into more detail in the shortage occupations and building upon what both Madalina and Michael have already said, we see here a structural trend that every year again and again the same occupations enter in this list of the top shortage occupations. And while there are a good number of them in this high skilled sector, notably related to ICT and the like, we also see a high share of shortage occupations that are in medium skilled level and in the field of where the skilling comes from vocational education and training, apprenticeships and the like. So these skill gaps that we can see, they're really kind of across all the spectrum from high to low skill. Now, to go to a more practical point, so next to the report that we are producing there, we are also offering an interactive data dashboard where data users can browse themselves either by country or by occupations and see in themselves where there is a shortage or a surplus in that occupation, in that country, and also vice versa, where would be the potential clearing option through free movement of workers. Additionally, what we are starting to analyze is our EURES database on job vacancies, where every moment in time we have about 4 million vacancies there across all Europe. And in cooperation with STAS, we created another set of interactive data dashboards. And here this allows to also say something on the skills demands. And this is quite recent data. So what you see here from this on the slide is the first half of 2024. In the meantime, we have the first 3 quarters of 2024 uploaded. So it's a time lag of only a quarter, which is very recent in the framework of providing skills intelligence. And what we see here as this snapshot is from those vacancies who have been on the EURES portal in the first half of 2024, quite a mix of the skills that are demanded by the employers, with a strong emphasis on horizontal, on transversal skills like communication, self-management and the like. And then, as already mentioned before, some emphasis on ICT skills, programming, software and the like, but also more occupational skills like in the fields of manufacturing and construction. Now, why is this all important to have these data and to have these findings? As I slightly touched upon earlier on, these challenges that we see on the labor market, they tend to be structural. So, of course, there are new developments coming all the time, but these big gaps, these big shortages, they are there now for at least 7 years. This is the time series of our EURES report on labor shortages. That's where we have the available data for that. And that means there really is a need for improving, bringing the demand and the supply on the labor market closer together. And there comes in the data as being an important part for decision making at various levels. So on the one hand, at the very micro level, an employer would need this information for their better planning, whom they should be able to recruit, what will be the need for production. Madalina mentioned that in her intervention in the future, and also to be able to voice better what the skill needs are, so that then the job matching can work. At the same time, at the level of individuals, they need to be prepared for sustainable employability, meaning not only providing the skills that are needed now, but also the skills that are needed tomorrow, in half a year, in 3 years, and the like. And same for policy. Already Michael touched upon that. It's not only about changing or adapting curricula to what is needed. It is also other strategies like incentives for the labor market or in the social fields. And with all of that comes also the point that having all this information is again not sufficient. We also need to make sure that the information is available and accessible, that individuals, employers, advisors, policymakers know about it and can also work with that. And as said, they always need to look into the future so that not only the current problems can be solved, but also in the medium to long run. And for that, we need a lead time to prepare both at micro level and at macro level and at policy level these potential changes. And that's why it is so important to have anticipation, to look into the future, what might be needed there. Now, with all of that, we are facing some challenges. A few of them have already been touched upon by Michael. I would like to get one step back to where Michael started about data availability, data quality. I fully agree here. I would like to add there, notably also talking about granularity, both in terms of occupations, regions, sectors, and the comparability across country, so that we not only have individual national data sources, but a union-wide harmonized data set that really also at European level, we can provide that, similarly as is done by CEDEFOP in the by a skills shortage, by a skills gap, and that from an academic, from a research perspective, that would also be very important, very essential to have, because at the end you cannot analyze something that you cannot define, that you not know what it is about. Then a next step would be to find a harmonized, sophisticated methodology. And I here very welcome all the effort that is done by CEDEFOP and other colleagues in that field, to really come up with solid models of capturing the situation today and of the future. And as mentioned, last element where we would need then to bring, if all the first three would be captured, to bridge the gap would then be to raise the awareness and the accessibility of these available data. And that not only means putting a dashboard somewhere up there, but also helping the non-technical users to really understand the data. So again, highly appreciated initiatives like this from CEDEFOP, where there is the possibility, like Madalina did, to really explain the data, to help understand, to help interpret it. Now, with all the challenges, it doesn't look that bad, because we also see some big opportunities here. And to start with the first one, particularly in the current situation of these tightening labor markets and this emphasis that also Michael has mentioned from policy level on skills and skills development, there currently is very high demand and high interest in the topic, which is a good precondition that these challenges on the other side of the slide, they are being tackled. I also think that technology brings us big opportunities, not only as Michael mentioned in the field of artificial intelligence. Also big data is a topic which can be better channeled, better analyzed through technology, but also more practical, because again, like opportunities like today, online meetings are now much easier possible than a couple of years ago, which bridges the gap between academic, between researchers, to jointly bring up the expertise for jointly developing good data and developing good data models. And that brings me to the last 2 points, which are about cooperation. On the one hand, cooperation between different data sets. So taking this example that I briefly presented, taking very hands-on data that we have from Eures job vacancies and using them for labor market and skills intelligence is a kind of a new strand, going away from administrative data, structural data, but also trying to find here what we can combine to fill these data gaps that I mentioned before as challenge. And last but not least, all these activities, they couldn't be done by individuals in isolation. Cooperation is essential, and there to start with what was already mentioned, we are working among the employment agencies strongly to cooperate, to create synergies, to join our different fields of expertise and data to jointly come up with solutions that can solve all the issues that I have mentioned before. And with that, I thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the further discussions.
Thank you, Irene. I think we cannot agree more on the importance of cooperation and synergies between agencies and institutions, and the need for an harmonized definition for data. We are sitting on a huge amount of data, and it's up to us to make the best out of it. Data without a definition, we know that are basically useless. So now it's time for the worldwide perspective, let's say. So I would ask Takaki to share with us some insights about experiences and practices in short-term skills anticipation from outside the EU, and considerations about their policy relevance. So please, Taka, I hand over to you.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction, and also thank you so much for the invitation. And first of all, I would like to first congratulate CITIFOP for this work on this, I would say, much needed new tool for short-term skills anticipation. And as we may all agree and heard that the world is changing faster and faster, and also becoming increasingly uncertain. And I believe more and more countries are in need of a type of skills anticipation that is more agile and fast-paced. And in this regard, CITIFOP's efforts on its short-term skills anticipation is truly timely and relevant, and also very inspiring. And as you can imagine, Europe is certainly not alone in recognizing this importance of short-term skills anticipation. And in fact, if you look at existing examples, compared to the state of art as of, let's say, mid-2000, the number of countries and regions that produce short-term skills anticipation has in fact increased, which in my view is, itself is a sign of growing interest and even necessity, felt by countries and regions to sort of shorten the feedback loop between the labor market signals and their policies, and also to some extent the advancement in methods and greater availability of data, which has made the short-term anticipation feasible for those countries. So I'd like to provide some international perspective from the ILO's perspective. And so here is a non-exhaustive snapshot of some of the major initiatives around the world. And as you can see, you can find examples in almost all regions, and starting from Asia and the Pacific, for example, Australia and Singapore, have been spearheading in their efforts to develop a robust data infrastructure and coordination mechanisms for monitoring and anticipating skills needs. For example, in Australia, Jobs and Skills Australia produces monthly nowcasts of employment by region and occupation, which is in short called NERO. Which provides up-to-date estimates of over 300 occupations across more than 80 regions in the country. Australia also maintains an index called Internet Vacancy Index, which is which, as opposed to estimate, which is a real-time, the actual counting of new online job vacancies by occupation and region. And I believe this is released monthly. And importantly, these data from those exercises inform Australia's national skills priority list, which in turn informs measures such as targeting skills migration visas and also training funding allocation and so on. And in Singapore, Skills Future Singapore, Singapore famously publishes skills demand for future economy report every year, and which analyzes real-time labor market data to pinpoint emerging in-demand skills and roles. And these insights are then translated into targeted training incentives and career guidance and so on. More traditional and long-standing efforts are found in, of course, in North America, where Canada and the United States perhaps famously produce short-term employment projection by detailed occupation at subnational level, at the provincial level or state level, under the coordination of federal government. So in Canada, for example, Employment and Social Development Canada, ESDC, produces a 3-year employment outlook for over 500 occupations across all the provinces and territories in the country. And in the United States, the Department of Labor mandates actually each state work agencies to produce a 2-year occupational forecast. And then interestingly, this Department of Labor supports those state-level agencies by providing tools and models and also capacity development training through a partnership called Projection Managing Partnership. So this is an interesting example from the United States. And I think as a previous presenters mentioned, in the past few years, perhaps coinciding with the advancement in machine learning techniques, new initiatives are also emerging, many regions, including Latin America and other parts of the world. For example, in Chile, the National Training and Employment Services, SENS, has developed a job vacancy analysis system called SABE, powered by AI. And this exercise or platform disseminates analysis on online job posting from all the major job boards in the country. I believe it's on a monthly basis, I might be wrong, by using a machine learning technique, and the insights coming out of this platform informs training programs design and career guidance and so on. And lastly, there are also emerging initiatives at the supranational regional level. So in this regard, Europe is certainly not alone in advancing regional efforts. And in fact, many other regions are actually looking to Europe to learn from European example. And for example, in North Africa and the Arab State region, the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, ESCOA, has developed a platform called ESCOA Skills Monitor. And this platform actually uses a machine learning technique to analyze real-time information from more than 120 online job boards in the region. And interestingly, this platform also creates this kind of a visualization of a skills cluster, which is basically showing which skills frequently appear together in a vacancy announcement, and also which occupations are related to each other. So going into this kind of ontology or network type of realm, which could be very, very informative for facilitating policies and programs that try to facilitate occupational transitions. So these are these examples are good examples. To me, seems to underscore a common theme, which is to say, short-term skills anticipation is most meaningful when it is embedded in decision-making processes, because whether it's Australia linking forecast to funding and visas, or Singapore coupling skills analysis with training subsidies, or Canada and United States integrating the results of projections into career services, there is no doubt that the value of anticipation comes from its policy relevance. And so, speaking of the policy relevance of skills needs and skills anticipation, I would also like to highlight the role of social partners coming from the ILO, because they play a very important role as a stakeholder, meaning employers and workers organizations and industry associations and education training providers. they play a very important role in influencing policies and programs. So, and you can find numerous examples if you look at how countries responded to the supply chain disruptions during the COVID-19 pandemic, and our memories are still relatively fresh as to the level of disruptions that the pandemic brought about to supply chains and the world of work, including the workforce shortages in various critical sectors in the economies. And I'd like to also say that it's worth recalling that in the middle of these disruptions, it was the social partners who often issued early warning signals on labor shortages in crucial economic sectors. For example, in the United States semiconductor sector, the Semiconductor Industry Association, SIA, assessed the domestic workforce gap in the semiconductor manufacturing, and their study actually forecasted a shortfall of about 67,000 skilled workers domestically. And this foresight really influenced to a great degree policy programs to boost in the United States to the domestic talent pipeline as a matter of national competitiveness. And in the UK's transport sector, it was the road transport industry associations like Logistics UK and workers' unions like Unite who sounded the alarm on acute shortage of truck drivers. And this warning really prompted the government into action, such as the fast-tracked driver licensing and putting in place training incentives. In India's information and communications sector, NASSCOM, the Industry Association for Information Technology in India, they analyzed hiring trends in 2021, and they observed very high or skyrocketing demand for cloud computing cybersecurity professionals in the hiring practices. And so the government acted on these signals by actually partnering with NASSCOM to rapidly roll out a short-term reskilling program called Future Skills Prime, which is actually still ongoing even in a post-pandemic era. And lastly, in the Australia's horticulture sector, the National Farmers Federation urgently flagged that these travel restrictions were causing an unprecedented level of shortfall of farm workers. And thanks to these early warnings, the government introduced emergency measures such as the extension of visas for foreign seasonal workers who are already in the country. So these examples really demonstrate how timely skills intelligence and stakeholder inputs can translate into concrete policy actions, especially in the times of crisis. And these early warning signals certainly helped governments to mitigate, if not eliminate, skill shortages. And even more interestingly, many of these emergency responses actually have led to long-lasting reforms in the skills development systems in those countries. So, the policy relevance of short-term skills anticipation is very clear, but despite these, relevance, challenges, of course, remain. And, the lack of timely and high-quality data is a significant issue, as mentioned by Irene and Michael. And also exponential growth in big data availability, of course, presents opportunities, but it certainly comes with, questions of representativeness. And also, data analysis capacity is often a challenge for countries and institutions. And furthermore, and perhaps most importantly, translating insights into policies and programs, it requires dedicated efforts, and it does not come automatically. And this is perhaps the biggest challenge in front of us. So to address these challenges, there needs to be a stronger commitment to establish robust data infrastructure, and to reduce the risk of bias in forecast. Combination of different data sources and the validation of quantitative projection with experts' inputs is also crucial. And to make a better use of different types of data and methods, I think a more capacity building of on skills forecast and foresight is much needed by many countries. And last but not the least, the importance of a social dialogue and stakeholder engagement can never be understated in terms of facilitating the buy-in and also the translation of insights into policies and programs. So there are many challenges and tasks ahead of us, but so are the opportunities to collaborate, like Irene mentioned. And there are many areas for collaboration, but if I were to pick two, I would say, first of all, knowledge sharing, such as this event, and perhaps also capacity development opportunities, which can take many forms, would be greatly beneficial for many countries across the world. And another area that I would like to also mention is perhaps the need to think about interoperability. Because with many national regional exercises emerging, perhaps there's a need. Actually, there is a heightened acknowledgement among practitioners that at some point we must think of a way for different systems to speak to each other. And so at the ILO, we have a wide range of tools and programs on skills anticipation, which are already implemented in many of our member states. And also, as we may all agree, skills anticipation is an ongoing endeavor, and we must continue to collaborate and innovate in this field. And in this regard, we certainly appreciate this opportunity to join today's event, and we stand ready to engage in a further discussion. So thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Taka. I think it's vital, it's crucial for us to understand and even learn from what's happening out there outside of Europe. And it was so inspiring to hear about the experiences in Australia, Canada, Singapore, Chile, and regional comparability in North Africa and so on. And I think it was also very relevant the way you emphasize the challenges and actions for the future. So now we have 5-6 minutes for a quick round of reactions. Speakers have the opportunity to pick the element they found the most interesting, inspiring from the other two presentations and share some comments. I would follow the same order that we have adopted. So I would start with Michael, please.
Thank you very much, Pierpaolo. And both the presentations were very rich and comprehensive. So I can only touch on one or two things because there was so much really rich material presented. Maybe on the need for cooperation between the agencies mentioned by Irena. Of course, very happy to hear this, but I focused on it, so I think we've really made the point very clearly. I think it's something that came out a little bit also when we were first looking at our green transition and the potential of job creation and skills needs for the green transition. It's this need, I think, was highlighted there. And maybe from Irena's presentation as well, I thought she focused really on the mismatch, the shortage and the surplus occupations. And I think this is indeed very important because it's such a big part of the problem that we have now in this skills shortage scenario that we have in the EU. So I think this is very important and interesting that you touched also on the surplus and the fact that there would be workers that would be available, because I think we are discussing a lot this also, how also to also activate, for example, women in the context of STEM and ICT, and activate people that could really help us to solve our shortage problems. On the other presentation by Takaki, I think thanks very much for the presentation of these interesting short term instruments, initiatives that you mentioned across the world. And I think I'd be very interested also to look at these kind of initiatives to see whether we're getting increased number of these initiatives also in Europe. And I know that Cedefop has a matching skills online tool with examples from member states. So it would be interesting, I think, to focus on look for examples in member states of new initiatives on this short-term skills intelligence. I think an important point you also mentioned is the importance of the social partners. This, of course, couldn't agree more. In Europe, the social partners' contribution to developing skills intelligence and information on skills shortages and labor market shortages, absolutely vital. Not only you mentioned also in the COVID situation, but more generally as well, a very important point. So thank you. I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Michael. Irene, if you wish to share some comments, please.
Thank you for that. Yes. Well, I found very striking throughout all interventions this strong signal. There is the need for more data, for better data still, although a lot has already been done. So also the demand from policy side, and I highly appreciate that there is this recognition that informed decision-making, informed policy-making should be based on a good, solid and robust databases. And at the same time, this not only happening in Europe, but also globally. I got the perception that a lot is already going on, and many initiatives, many attempts to measure, to better improve the data that are available, and the methods are already going on. So I would also here echo what previous speakers had said, and to emphasize more, trying to find maybe even more ways of collaborating, of exchanging what is there, what has already been done, learning from each other, and maybe jointly doing something rather than everyone doing it in isolation, and maybe that going beyond the EU agencies where this is already happening, but really thinking about a more global perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Cannot agree more on that. And please, Taka, I'm happy to hear about your comments, if any, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. And really, I really enjoyed the two presentations and also the remarks at the whole event. Really, it's very inspiring. And as all of us highlighted, I think it's clear that skills anticipation, especially at the faster pace and at the granular level that many people emphasize, has really become, in Europe, certainly has become among the top priority in light of this EU's current policy agenda, which is to say from the political guidelines to Draghi reports, stressing really the urgency to break the skills barriers, and also this upcoming action plans. This is really it's really clear that timely anticipation is seen as essential for many countries. And yeah, from the other perspective, I really like to look forward to engage in further discussions and this kind of opportunity to engage in the dialogue. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Taka, and thank you, everyone. I think we managed to transform the virtual get-together in a real learning get-together, because we had so much information to share. I see also there are a lot of questions in the chat. Some of them have been addressed by Madalina. Now we are running short of time, but please feel free to contact me should you need clarification, should you wish to discuss more into details any aspect, and thanks the audience for their participation. And I would hand over straight to Jasper van Loo, our department coordinator, for some closing remarks. Please, Jasper.
Yes, thanks, Pierpaolo. Thanks also, Madalina, and thanks for the interesting discussions, Michael, Irene, and Takaki, and everyone who was busy in the chat. As you said, a lot of interaction was taking place. I think it was really a rich exchange. Now, first of all, and this is important from you, our audience, we want to know what your experience was in this virtual get-together. We take continuous improvement very seriously at STAS, and we would like to encourage you to complete the online evaluation. So it will be shared in the chat, and we would warmly encourage you to do it right away, please, so that you have the evaluation while the experience is still fresh. Now, in this virtual get-together on STAS, we went over the different approaches. We saw how actually the STAS approach takes on board 3 forecasts to take the best out of different techniques. And I think what was also quite visible was that we see in the STAS findings also reflected the megatrends that shape our society. We see that ICT and science and engineering professionals jobs are expanding there because of the twin transition. We see medium level occupations in decline because of skills upgrading. So basically we see the trends, but we see them in a shorter term perspective than we see them, for instance, in the long term forecast that we have. Now, in terms of short-term anticipation, many benefits to it. Faster policy responses to deal with shortages and gaps that stand in the way of competitiveness and twin transition. We have opportunities to shape labor mobility to reduce mismatches. We can design skills training programs for transitions and also responses to disruptions, which are also important. And then, I mean, several speakers said, of course, challenges remain. We have data, we have methods, we have sometimes difficulties in finding common definitions. But I would also say that outreach is a real issue, and sometimes we don't manage to get the data to stakeholders and to people that can do something with that data. In that sense, I think it's very good that STAS has an intuitive interface which quite clearly shows what is going on. While actually what is behind is quite complex, what the user sees is intuitive. I think it's also good news for the EU that it has its own short-term anticipation system now, given that other regions and other parts of the world also have these kind of systems. We saw in the last presentations also the short-term anticipation, the nowcast, which is sometimes enriched by big data. So it's actually really an asset for the EU to have these systems. Now, of course, already mentioned several times, instead of what we do more to understand skills trends and skills gaps. I mean, STAS is our latest addition to our skills intelligence tools. We use forecast to look 10 years ahead. We use skills of 8 to look at the skills data trends that are emergent because of digital and green transition and because of other transformations. And then, of course, we have our surveys. On all this work, all this forward-looking work, and none of these tools by itself actually tells the whole story. For instance, telling you a little bit about the issues that we have in digital skills, linked to what Michael said before about digital skills. We do our surveys to show, for instance, that half of adult workers do not have basic AI literacy skills, which is a key problem. Now, that you don't see from data on occupation. So what actually I'm trying to say here is that often what we need several types of skills intelligence to get the whole picture. Now, and then, of course, at Cedefop, we love data. We like to use data and to use econometric techniques, all the toolboxes we have to see what's going on. But we cannot capture all change with quantitative data. So we also have to use the qualitative techniques, such as foresight, to think outside of the box about breakthrough technologies and shifts in economies and societies and their impacts on jobs and skills. Now, talking about skills intelligence, and I'm wrapping up very soon. I see I'm a minute over, but I think we can take 2 minutes more. I think when we talk about skills intelligence, 3 things are important. So first of all, no single type of skills intelligence tool or method gives all the answers. As already said, the secret of good skills intelligence is often to combine methods and perspectives. The second point, also came to the table several times today. We like to talk about shortage of people and of skills, but that's only part of the mismatches we have to deal with. We also face enormous challenges in job quality and skills and people potential not being used. And I think a third, and that's an important point, skills intelligence is at the core of Europe's transformations and is also recognized as such by all major EU policy initiatives. Michael mentioned already several of them, and another one is, for instance, is the Clean Industrial Deal, which is presented actually today in Antwerp and Belgium today, and the Union of Skills, which is launched next week on March 5th. So there are skills intelligence in all these policy initiatives. Skills intelligence is a key priority. And we have opportunities to improve skills intelligence across Europe. So At Cenefop, what we do is we do not just develop skills intelligence for the EU, we also give insight in how it can actually work in countries, sectors, and in regions. And for us, it's also very important to promote sound methods and sound approaches. And the STAS approach that we learned about today, I think, is a very good example of how you can actually build and craft skills intelligence in a very sound way. Okay, so that basically concludes this virtual get-together. I'm aware we're a little bit over time, but I'm closing very, very soon. I would just like to note to you that this is a series of events. We have virtual get-togethers regularly. And in Cenefop's next virtual get-together, we're going to take a look at lifelong guidance systems and their role in helping people manage transitions in learning, work, and life. You can already join us to this next virtual get-together, which will take place on April 10th at 11:15 Central European time. I'm putting the link in the chat, so you can already join us next time. So thank you very much. That ends this virtual get-together. Thank you very much for being with us. Do not forget, please, the evaluation form, and have a very nice rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.